Growing up, I played a lot of different types of games. Platformers, action games, hack and slash, you get the idea. But what I did not play was RPGs, or anything really tactical until I got older. Imagine my surprise then when I realized my gaming taste had changed, and I actually enjoy RPGs now. I did a review on Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope recently, and if you didn't know, the first one in that series is arguably my favorite Switch game. I never thought I'd say that, nor did I think a tactical RPG could hold my attention. Along this same vein, I found myself playing Marvel's Midnight Suns recently, a tactical RPG with card-based fighting. Let's get right into the details. First, the good. Combat. I associate a lot of negative ideas with card-based games, namely microtransactions. This game thankfully doesn't shove those down your throat. There aren't card or combat microtransactions, just skins and outfits. Cards are either light or dark based, and some have heroism costs associated with them. You build your heroism with different attacks and actions, so you can't just come out guns blazing with OP ones right away. The cards feel varied enough that you usually get a good hand. There was only once where one of the dark cards took away other cards that I had in my hand, and I ran out. There are redraws, but you have to have a card in order to exchange for the new one. Discarding less useful ones and upgrading your favorites also took some time, but in a good way, as you can upgrade them in the Yard, Blaze Training Grounds, in your base, the Abbey. With the exception of one boss fight, the game feels very balanced. Hydra soldiers provide just enough of a threat to keep things interesting, and the conditions to win seem fair. Some bosses have certain specials that really make you think about your strategy, like Venom's spikes when shielding himself. A couple people online had mentioned that the reinforcements element was frustrating, that it would have been better to see all the enemies on the map at once instead of having them coming in from off screen. I'm not too bothered by this, and it does allow for more enemies when you don't meet certain conditions, like a certain Crossbones fight I'll get into later, but it adds a level of tension to a fight when you know more Hydra agents will pile into the battlefield. It really puts the tactical element into the game. Those same Hydra soldiers also feel balanced, as I noted before. They don't just rush the field and execute all the attacks they want. One thing that frustrated me on Mario plus Rabbids was how portals would spawn, new enemies would emerge, execute their attacks, and then even more enemies would pour out all over again. It felt really unbalanced and unfair, and was probably my least favorite part of an otherwise great game. This game doesn't suffer from that problem. This felt like it was a lot more controlled, not just an enemy free-for-all to take you out in one turn. Story and characters. It took me a decent amount of time to care about the Hunter, seeing as they aren't an established Marvel character already. I'd say I was a few hours into the game before I really felt invested in their journey. That being said, they did a really great job of using supporting characters to prop up the backstory, like how Agatha and Caretaker are part of their history. I also love seeing other characters in the mix, like Spider-Man and Magic, chilling next to each other reading a book or at the bar. It's also fun to see other characters come and go, like Logan and Sabretooth. Drawing from the full backlog of characters in the Marvel Universe is done really well here. Lots of exposition gets done in Shop Class, Emo Kids, and Book Club, the side quests you engage with other characters in. But then again, this is an RPG game, so it's nice to see characters get thought and care put into their stories. There are definitely some Dead or Alive vibes going on with the Hangouts and Friendship side quests. You can buy bathing suits for all the characters, which is fine, I guess, if that's your thing, but it definitely felt like it was catering to a younger audience. I will say that not every Marvel property these days has to match the MCU and those actors. However, if you played Marvel's Avengers, you've seen firsthand how looking drastically different than what you think the character should look like is a drawback. These characters look just close enough that it's not an uncanny valley situation, nor is it just a straight-up copy. Tony could be Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Strange could be Benedict Cumberbatch. You get the idea. It's better this way than they did it in the Avengers game for sure. Captain America doesn't look like dollar store knockoff Steve Rogers. Crossbones sounds a lot like the actor from Winter Soldier and Civil War, even if you can't see his face. Exploration and the Abbey. I really liked exploring the Abbey and finding all the hidden items. A lot of the backstory for the Hunter is told this way. You also gain abilities that let you explore more areas. The Words of Power was a cool addition that let you find and open more paths on the Abbey grounds. I wouldn't call it Metroidvania necessarily, but there's definitely a gated path element, which I found myself wanting to cover every inch of the grounds to make sure I didn't miss anything. The Forge is great, with gamma coils giving you new abilities, the Yard for sparring and upgrading set abilities, the library, etc. All these places feel lived in, which is really great. The bad. Graphics play a huge element in this game despite it not being an action or first-person shooter. A noticeable amount of pop-in happens throughout the game, especially on character faces. It almost looks like some of them have fake eyelashes with how much their face flickers in and out of the frame. Thankfully, at least this part specifically doesn't affect gameplay, and it seems to be limited to character models and environmental details, but it is noticeable, and if those kinds of things frustrate you, you'll definitely feel it. I'm playing on a PS5, so I don't know if the experience is any different on PC. Some environmental pop-in and artifacting happens when you're exploring the Abbey grounds as well. Maybe the worst, though, is characters falling off the map. At first I thought I had to be missing something, because there is an element where characters can conceal themselves, but even then you can technically still see them, they're just transparent. But this is distinctly different. This happened a few times where I had to back out of a mission or encounter and start over, because the character either gets lifted up from off the map, or falls through the floor as shown here. This bug is enough for me to really change how I was feeling about the entire game. Until this happened, I felt like this might be one of my new favorite RPGs, but honestly, it's frustrating enough that I don't know if I could go back and do another playthrough without them putting a patch out. My HUD would occasionally disappear also, and with so much to keep track of, it was a little frustrating when you're trying to accomplish a list of tasks and it won't come back up. There was a lack of clarity around certain objectives too. That earlier mission with Crossbones I mentioned, it doesn't actually clarify if Crossbones needs to be finished off without another Hydra soldier left standing for backup. So for a minute I was a little confused, and it definitely took me a few tries to win this battle. Lastly, I somehow missed the whole damage with movement option. I'd been using environmental stuff like objects on the battlefield, portals to throw them in, holes in rooftops, but it took me honestly about 15 hours to realize you can hurt your enemy with a charge or movement. I thought that movement was just that, moving on the field. I guess that tells you how good I am at gaming overall. I'm still discovering things as I go, and I'm about 25 hours into it, with a projected 30 to 40 hours bare minimum for the story alone. I'm not a completionist, so I'll probably call it good once I finish the story mode, but the game seems to still have a lot of secrets left to offer. If you enjoy RPGs and are a Marvel fan, or played other Firaxis games, I think you'll enjoy Midnight Suns. I bought it at full price, however, I can't recommend it with the graphics and performance issues I experienced at full retail price. If you see it on sale, definitely grab it, but otherwise wait. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 if we're giving grades, and a lot of that is due to the story and character elements. When the gameplay works, it works, but when it doesn't, you'll find yourself extremely confused or frustrated. With that said, I hope you're making your way into the new year with health and happiness. Take care, and we'll see you next time.